Alrighty, folks, let's pop over to the face cam so y'all can see me. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is VooDoo Val, and I am going to be your instructor today for the Photoshop challenge. Before we dive into everything, I would like to say that today's challenge is pre-recorded, so this is Val in the past saying hello to you all in the future. I hope you're excited for this challenge, as am I, and I hope you stick around for the rest of the day because there are challenges after this stream. There were challenges and other streams before this one, which you can all check out on the Adobe Live YouTube channel and below the video player on Behance if you watch on Behance. So, quick recap, our whole set of challenges are video game themed. We did kind of a tileable patterns stream last week where we created a little pattern that was very vaguely reminiscent of like video game styles. And today we're going to be working with gradient maps and a little bit of Express animation to create something that is inspired by side-scrolling games. Now, as always with these challenges, if you're not really a fan of video games and you are unfamiliar with side-scrolling games and it's not really your thing, you can always make these challenges your own. I'm going to be showing a set of skills and techniques that you can use for pretty much anything. So let's dive into it. I'm going to pop over here to my stream so that you folks can see what our challenge starter file looks like. You will have an identical file down below in the description, which you can open up and work alongside me. And it is kind of already designed, like a little side-scrolling template, if you will. This is a just a background image, however, and I do have it converted to a smart object, but the smart object, if you open that smart object, it is still going to be the flat image, because while I do want to have something in here that you folks can take a look at and use for a reference, it is not editable because we want to make our own today, right? So design your own art piece inspired by a side-scrolling game, as I said, or another art style. Experiment with gradient maps and layer styles to add depth. So you can see that I've got like this little level set up. So it's kind of like one of those little games where you're kind of jumping from little platform to get across. I've got some little objects kind of in there, maybe little items that your game guy or gal can pick up along the way. And this is what we're going to do first. We are going to hide our info. I always like to put all of the challenge info in one little place so that you folks can hide it and kind of get to the meat of the assets. We do have a little group here called current colors, which are the colors that are currently in use for the background here. And we also have, if I unhide this, we also have a series of color palettes, which I thought were really fun. Our video game palette is very saturated, but I also have some other more neutral, warmer, toned palettes here if you decide that you are going to be doing something different. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about color palettes. We're going to create a gradient map, but I would love to give you guys some great resources and things where you can find color palettes of your own, because it is sometimes difficult to find color palettes. And one of the mistakes that I made early on in my designing and my illustrating is that I would always look up color palettes for exactly what I was making, which is not always the way to go about things. So let's pop over here real quick to my main screen, because I would love to show you guys, first of all, Adobe Color. Adobe Color is an amazing place where you can go and get color palettes. You can see people have uploaded images and extracted color palettes from them. If you come over to the Explore page, you can look up popular searches. This is the Vaporwave search because I'm a big fan of Vaporwave. You can go into primary colors and take a look there if you want and see some cool color palettes that people have done. You can also come into Create, and you can either create a color palette from scratch, or you can go to Extract Theme, Extract Gradient, uploading an image of your own. You can go to your accessibility tools and make sure the colors that you're using work really well together. And you can also save them to a Adobe library or CC library. So you have your little drop down here so that they can come up in your libraries and you can use them in Photoshop. Another thing I highly recommend is to search for color palettes outside outside of your area of expertise. So we are doing flat illustration in Photoshop that is video game themed, but highly recommend checking out stuff like interior design. People who are decorating homes and stuff always have really great color palettes, and I head over to Pinterest all the time and take a peek at these really great color palettes that have been extracted similar to how you would do it on Adobe Color. But sometimes seeing it in a new light, seeing it in a different way really lends itself to kind of getting the creativity flowing and things like that. So definitely look in other places other than what you're actually doing to hunt down really great color palettes. So let's pop back over to Photoshop because we have gradient maps and color palettes to put together. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to create a gradient map to save out of our colors that are already here. Now I have converted the background layer to a smart object, as I mentioned earlier, and that is because when we apply our gradient map, it is going to be something that we can toggle on and off. If you apply a gradient map to a rasterized layer, a raster layer, if it's not a smart object, then it's going to change the colors of that layer without the ability to go back unless you have that many undos available. Okay, so with it converted to smart object, we're going to come up here, we're going to go to layer, and this is different than the way I've done gradient maps in the past. This is how I do it now. I go to layer, new adjustment layer, and then find gradient map. Okay, and I can call this whatever I want. Gradient map 1 is fine for me. I'm going to say okay, and then you can see our properties panel opens up nice and pretty right here, and we can click these colors right here to access the ability to edit our color palette. So I'm going to go ahead and just click that. And you can see this pops up with our usual gradient map panel, the gradient editor, and you will see in here, I've got like the gradient maps I use for my personal branding. You will have all of the basics, the blues, purples, pinks, reds, oranges, all this stuff is included in Photoshop, and we can kind of click those. You can see it does change our background color here. You can go through and experiment with all kinds of things that are available to you in here, and then you'll see I also have some really cool gradients that I have just created or downloaded over the years because I use gradient maps all the time. But what we're going to do is we're just going to select a random one, or you can leave it selected on the default gradient map it added, and we're going to go ahead and edit this. And this is how. So we're going to click this, this one here. And we're going to change this to, you can either just come over here or you can click on the color palette if you want to sample your own color, find your own. But we definitely want to sample from our palettes here. So with that selected, we'll click the darkest image here. We should be able to. Let me actually make sure that we are selected on our gradient here. And then we'll go back into it. Okay. So let's go ahead and click this. We are going to select our brown color there. You can see that with our gradient selected, not our little layer adjustment mask here, we can select that brown color. And then I'm just going to select this other one here, and we're going to select the brightest color right there. And then we'll add all of them in between by simply clicking in the spaces between here. So I can select that one. We'll add our red. Can select another one here, we'll add our orange, another here, we'll add our yellow, and another here, we'll add our cream color. So now we have this gradient map, and you can edit these as well. So I'm actually thinking maybe this blue is not bright enough for really what I'm going for here. So I'm gonna select our blue, and then we will come into the color palette, and I'm gonna make this, it's actually more of a greenish color. I'm actually gonna make this pretty bright, pretty light. We'll go ahead and say okay, so now it's a little brighter there. And you can maneuver these around to kind of transform how this the succession of colors really interact with each other. I like this pretty well. I might bring this cream color closer to our bright greenish blue, because when I do that, it kind of, it leaves the background, the top of the background here, really bright, and then only our little items that are on these platforms are kind of that bright color, which I like. Another thing though is you'll see these little diamond things here. It's a color midpoint, as my little hover has told me. You can actually change the relationships between the colors in the gradient map that are right next to each other. Let's go ahead and Control Z and undo that. But yeah, you can see I can definitely change like how specific I want these colors to be, and I kind of actually like that a little better. So there we go. And if you would like to save this as a gradient map that you can access in other files in the future, all you have to do is come here after editing, and you can rename this. We can call this CH for challenge 2 map. We'll call this map 3 because I've saved a couple of maps for this challenge, and then hit new. And you'll see it adds that right there. Perfect. So now you can access that for all sorts of things, and we can say, okay. And now we have those maps added, and you can add as many as you want here. You can create your own. You can create a map like I did earlier of the current colors, which I added. In fact, I think I am going to apply our current colors because I have this map here created with those, so it looks kind of similar to the way it did when we started out. So that is how you can create a gradient map of colors to apply to whatever you like. Now, building out our actual piece, because what I'd like to do is be able to bring this into Express and kind of animate a little, a fun little game scene, is I'm going to go ahead and close our current colors and our colors, and using this background as sort of a guide, what I'm going to do is quickly build it out with some shapes. So I'm going to grab my shape tool, and I'm going to kind of drag out a little rectangle following our guide, okay? And I'm going to build this out with kind of grayscale tones. And the reason why I'm doing this is because sometimes working with the colors can be a little daunting. You start to create something and maybe you realize like, I'm not sure if these colors are working well. This is just another tip for all of you folks who maybe struggle to create with color or to find the right colors. I suggest designing without color in the first place and then applying those colors with gradient maps later. So that's what we're going to do. I have got my little rectangle here. I'm going to go ahead and take my gradient map and my background color. We'll select them both by clicking while holding Shift, and then Control or Command G if you're working on a Mac to group, and we'll call this test because that was our first test. And then we will Control or Command Shift in to create a new layer. And layer 1 is fine as a name for that. And I am just going to grab my paint bucket tool, which is G on your keyboard. And I'm going to grab a darker color of like a gray. And we're going to start building out a little level here. I am going to use a bunch more rectangles over the top of our little window here to kind of create all of our little platforms. All right. So with my rectangle tool above here, I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, this is our little starting platform. We will fill this with the same color as our background. Okay. And the reason why I'm doing these separately is because I'm going to eventually use clipping masks to clip this, okay? I'm going to go Control or Command J to duplicate that, and then use my Move tool, which is V on your keyboard, to kind of create this other version of this. You can also, to duplicate things like we did in our last challenge, you can hold Alt until this duplication icon kind of transforms your cursor, and you can move things around that way. I'm going to kind of bump this down here, and you just click and drag. That's all. So we'll click and drag one of these over here, and I will come back to my shape tool, which is U on the keyboard. As you can see, our little tool tip there, and I'm going to make this small little platform here. And then hitting V on my keyboard to re-access my move tool, I will hold Alt and we'll duplicate this. And what I'm trying to do here is make a little staircase kind of thing. If you can imagine playing this game, you would come out into the scene here and then hop, hop. I think we need another little hop over here. Let's go ahead and hold Alt. We'll put another little hop right there. And I kind of like the idea, because I am a nerd, of putting a little extra hop down here, because maybe you could go through the level, hop, 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 hopping, little extra long hop over here to go into the next area. But maybe if you hop down here, there's a special item, and then you can hop back and go. So that's my thought process behind this. Now, I've got all of these rectangles that I've duplicated, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna select them all by clicking the topmost layer I'd like to select, holding Shift and clicking the bottommost layer I'd like to select. And I'm going to right click and say Convert to Smart Object. So now I have all of these on their own smart object, and I will right click, and I believe you can do create clipping mask from here, but I would say get used to doing the Alt Control G so that you can clip that. So now this is clipped into our little rectangle, which is pretty cool. Another way that you could do this is you could maybe select the shape of our rectangle by holding Control and clicking, and then masking that shape out and making the brighter colors a layer beneath. But this is just one of the ways to do it. It's a pretty easy way to do it, so we'll stick with this. So we've got our little level, right? I'm liking it, but we need to add some more depth in our background here. So what I'm gonna do is create a new layer, Control or Command Shift N. And there's a lot of ways that you could do this. I'm gonna do a really easy way, and that is I'm gonna take my Marquee tool, which is M on your keyboard, and I'm just gonna select roughly half of our piece here. Doesn't have to be perfect, and I'm just going to snag a lighter color, or maybe a medium color. Let's do light. Let's do like a light color, maybe a little bit lighter than that. And we're just going to kind of create like a little gradient in 3 or 4 parts. Okay, that works for me. In fact, we might even do this pretty darn bright. Let's do it like this. And then I'm going to take my Marquee tool and we're going to also select here. Let's do this in 3 parts. Now let's do a little bit darker. G for our paint bucket, boom. And then let's do this one more time with our Marquee tool. And let's make something that is just slightly darker. I want to make sure that I'm clicking properly. Okay, there we go. So we have like 3 little parts. Works for me. Grab our paint bucket again, a little bit darker, boom. So now we have like these levels, right? And I'm gonna do the same thing with our background. Maybe I'll do the same thing with our background. I suppose I've got these on separate layers, so that's fine, but let's just do the background for now, because we also have limited time and I don't want to get too crazy. But another thing that you can do, which I think is really fun, is we can Control Shift N to make another layer, and we can do kind of this variation of lines. So I'm going to do just a small selection here, and with our paint bucket tool, I'm going to sample, holding Alt, I'm going to sample this gray color. And kind of paint bucket that in. I'm going to Control or Command T to free transform this, and I'm just going to bump it down. And you can also just do the move tool with that if you want, but basically all I'm doing here is I would really like to create like a kind of blending of colors without using any gradient of any kind, which is maybe odd since this is a gradient challenge, but I just think I like the vibe, right? So we can do one here. We'll make that like the dark color, and then in fact we can Control J just to duplicate the color of this. And I see what I've done when I duplicated that is broken the chain of clipping mask, so we can just do Control Alt G to clip it again. And we will paint bucket that in with our gray color. So now we have like this cool little variation. And what we can do is select all of this, select our rectangle, all of our background, and we can convert that to a smart object. Let's go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Gradient Map. Well, Gradient Map 2 is fine. We'll make sure our gradient is selected. Click our colors here, and I'm going to scroll down to where our gradient map is and apply our little gradient map. So you can really apply that to whatever you want. Now we've got this going, and I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then I'm going to, let me pop over to my face cam real quick. We're going to open it in Adobe Express right quick, which I think is going to be super fun. And hopefully let's pop back, because I think we've got it going. Let me put my other screen on here. We'll say start from your content. I'm going to hit challenge to stream file, because there's our little piece, and I'm going to say convert to a Adobe Express file, convert, and then it should have all of our layers there. All of our pieces where I can add in our little elements from our the previous example. We'll have some little items for our game kind of hovering in place. So let's go ahead and say open. Dun, 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 dun. We might have to save it one more time because it's come in grayscale, which is not what we wanted. Let me try this one more time. I'm going to save it. You know what we might need to do is import it slightly differently. So let's say start from content, say okay, and then let's do PS linked image. And we'll do, we can do a thumbnail shape, that's fine. Synced across Creative Cloud. Okay, cool. So we've got our background. I think it needs to load a little bit because it's got a little buffer in it. Maybe, perhaps. I don't know why it's gray. We're gonna solve this. We're gonna solve this. I think I know. I'm gonna try one more thing. I think I know why it's doing that. Let's pop back over to our Photoshop. And since I have this gradient map thing, you know what it might be is that our gradient map is not, there's no gradient map layers in Express. So I think maybe it's not translating that over. So what we're going to go ahead and do is select our background and our gradient map, and I am going to convert that to a smart object. Well, actually our layer 1 as well. Let's go ahead and convert that to smart object. Control S. To save. Let's pop back over here to our Adobe Express. I think this is going to be it. Let's hit challenge to stream file because that's the file I'm working in. Let's go ahead and convert BSD to an Adobe Express file. Convert. Shouldn't take that long because there's not a lot in this file. It's not a very, very heavy file that we're working with. Go ahead and open. Fingers crossed. Yeah, all right, there we go. So we have our background and everything perfect. That's actually, sometimes mistakes happen or things don't work exactly as we thought they would, but honestly, I'm really glad for the opportunity to solve the problem. So if you guys at home were trying to do that same thing and it didn't work out so great, then we now know how to solve that problem. So I've just added a shape, an ellipse shape in here. And I am going to kind of hover this here, like this is a little item that you can get. We're going to change this to, let's sample this color and then come to custom and make this brighter because I want it to be pretty bright. And then let's put a border around it. Let's select our orange color. Put a little orange border around it. We'll make the border thickness a little bit bigger. So we have a little item kind of here. And what I'd like to do is add animation, and let's just make it, let's put a looping animation and make it, can we do like a bob? Yeah. That looks like a little game item. I like it. There we go. And I'm going to duplicate it. We'll put one here as well, because I feel like there can be a couple of little things here. So they kind of animate. And then the last thing we want to do is I'm going to put, because I'm a nerd, I'm going to type in heart here. And I'm going to put a heart down at the bottom, because I think that there should be a top secret life, like an extra game life that you can get, kind of hovering down here. And we'll put this one on a spin, maybe a faster spin. Energetic. Whoa. Okay, sure. That's very energetic. Definitely can't miss that. So I like this. That is all that I have for today. I think that you guys can see how if we continue a little more, you could decorate this with all kinds of stuff. You can do all sorts of little things to it if you want to improve and add some more items of intrigue in here. But that's all the time that I have for you folks, so I need to take off. This has been a blast, though. I appreciate all of you joining me. I hope that you have enjoyed learning a little bit more about gradient maps in a new way that I am using gradient maps now, and I hope you have experimented with a little bit of animation when it comes to your Photoshop files and bringing them into Express. I will see you again tomorrow for an episode of Drawing a Blank, and next week and the week after for other challenges. So until then, adios folks, and I'll see you soon.